Typecasting can make or break an actor, but a lot of the time, it's a break. Take somebody like Jim Carrey. When Jim Carrey emerged on the scene, he was playing a lot of different characters, but despite that, every character was a cartoony, likeable goofball. Which granted, Carrey was excellent at. Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, Liar Liar, and even The Cable Guy. It was all just Carrey being absolutely insane for like an hour and 40 minutes, which was excellent to see, and seeing him revive that recently with Dr. Robotnik and the Sonic films was like poetry. But there came a time when Carrey felt done with that. He felt he needed to break outside of this character he's been repeating over and over long before he was a big film star in his In Living Color days, and before, even as a stand-up comedian. He struggled and slipped here and there, but in 1998 he landed a film that just about changed everything. The Truman Show. The Truman Show allowed Carrey to tone it down, to be reserved, while still funny, but the script and character held real emotional weight. Jim got to spread his wings a little bit as an actor, and it was a rare critical success for him, because despite being very loved by audiences, Carrey never really had the best reputation with the critics. And the further Jim moved away from his persona to more serious roles, the critics started to favour him. The problem was, the audience loved him less. It became a very difficult balance for him, and he made a lot of studio comedies in the 2000s which weren't as cartoony as before, so the audiences were wishy-washy on how they felt, but they weren't as solid and rich with meaning, so the critics weren't as impressed either. This eventually broke him until it felt like he just disappeared. But there is one single instance of Jim Carrey really switching up everything, and that is in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Easily the greatest Jim Carrey film in my opinion. Insane script from Charlie Kaufman, a brilliant cast, Michel Gondry's unique direction, but most of all, a Jim Carrey we had never seen before. He was new, reinvented, and emotionally deep, and of course, it did extremely mediocre at the box office. Because audiences love Jim Carrey, but only when he's doing what they want him to do, what they expect him to do. But what's curious is, this isn't always the case. Let's see the opposite end of the spectrum with Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson. These guys in the 2010s were huge, were in massive films, often together throughout the decade, and they all did incredibly well. People adored them, up until they didn't. See, there came a time where people started to get tired of seeing these two, especially together, repeating that Kevin Hart always plays the same character in every movie, Dwayne Johnson plays the same character in every movie, which they did. But in a way it was hard for them not to, because they were getting so many deals and so many movies, so much money, so much love for doing these characters for so long. But last year, both of these men had films come out, Me Time and Black Adam. Two films that were obliterated by audiences and critics alike. Me Time was my least favourite film of the year. I despise it, and I'm someone who finds Kevin Hart's comedy still pretty funny. But the public had reached the peak of their fatigue. So why did the audience switch up on these two for doing the same thing over and over, but hated Jim Carrey for trying something new? Well, I think it all has to do with that character and the likability of it. The longevity of the unstoppable action hero who says one-liners that only exist in the same kind of blockbuster can only carry you so far. But take someone like Jack Black, who mostly plays the same character in every movie. I say mostly because of things like Bernie, but he basically plays Black Jack. But does this work? Absolutely. Because you could put Black Jack into near any scenario and he crushes it, because the way he adapts his style to his characters is phenomenal. Dewey Finn and Poe are the same guy. Different worlds, different goals, and different scenarios, but their tonal inflections, the way they react, the way they think, the way they perceive the world, it's basically one for one. But in the case of School of Rock, it's a light-hearted musical comedy about a guy whose passion for music helps him discover his real love for teaching. It's timeless and easily digestible. Kung Fu Panda is an animated kung fu movie about a panda adapting to a world he's longed for but was not ready for. It has lessons on individuality, father-son relationships, fulfilling your destiny and finding self-worth. It's a beautiful looking movie wrapped up in some comedy and brilliantly scripted emotionally obese moments. Same type of guy, vastly different but great movies. This was the case for Jim Carrey also, but not the case for Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson, who felt like they were just starring in varying versions of the same movie. Some people can break this though. It's happened a few times and gloriously. Of course, Jim Carrey did, but with not much success, but people like Robert Pattinson, Michael Keaton, Bryan Cranston, Heath Ledger did it in a major way that people even forget they were typecasted to begin with. But nobody has broken that mold quite like the Sandman, Adam Sandler. For the entirety of the 90s, Adam Sandler was famous for one type of character, the man baby. He carried on this character throughout the 2000s and accumulated a filmography of Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore, Click, Mr. Deeds, Little Nicky, and gained a reputation of just being a silly, loud equals funny kind of guy. Later on, he shifted slightly into romantic comedies where he toned it down slightly but not all too much. But there are spots in his career where he massively diverted from his typecast and switched up what he was known for to much success. So there's a few films to talk about here, and I'm going to start with Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. Now, I did a video on Punch Drunk Love already if you'd like to know my full thoughts, but that was the first time Adam Sandler did something very different. He was still a shouting man baby, but in an entirely different context. The dramatic chops that Sandler pulls off in this film should have set in motion something that didn't come around for another nearly 2 decades. But like Carrey, this massive diversion did very mediocre in theatres. He also did a film called Funny People, which is a very interesting movie which I plan to do a video on soon. It's a film about a movie star, ex-stand-up comedian, known for awful studio comedies he's not proud of, who gets diagnosed with cancer, and takes a new comedian under his belt to get back to what he loves. Which, aside from the cancer part, sounds awfully like Sandler, and I think his reflection in this character is nearly brilliant. Nearly. See, this film is also a boner comedy starring the usual Judd Apatow cast, and I usually enjoy those, but the problem is this film is trying to do both and it doesn't commit to either style. It struggles to find the balance, and that's where this film is let down, but it was once again a spark of what Sandler was capable of. And then nearly a decade later, in 2017, we finally got a good shot at this style of character in The Meyerowitz Stories, a Noah Baumbach masterclass, and though I think this film is largely held up by Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler delivers a comedic performance that has copious amounts of layers which are undeniably profound. It's a Netflix original, so definitely check it out if you haven't, but all this pales in comparison to one movie. Uncut Gems. The Safdie brothers' 2020 Netflix sensation captured people in a time of lockdown, which is lucky because I think this film would have went severely unnoticed otherwise as far as the general public is concerned, but releasing to Netflix when people were stuck in their homes gave this film a chance. A chance that pushed the perception of Adam Sandler as an actor into the stratosphere. Sandler is reborn in this film, delivered quite easily the greatest performance he has ever given and may ever give, although he is linking up with the Safdies again, so we'll see how that pans out. But Uncut Gems was a drug-induced heart attack that didn't let up the entire runtime. Sandler grappled this script and tore up the scenery in every single shot, and I'm so glad the whole world was there to see it this time. He's carried on this dramatic tradition with his latest effort being Hustle, which was also pretty good. But going forward, Adam Sandler is free to make whatever style of movie he wants to make, be it a stupid boner comedy, a shouty man movie, a fucking dramatic basketball movie. He can be any character and it won't seem weird and audiences won't be surprised, and that is a rarity in this industry when you come from a typecast background. Now there's a type of typecast I want to talk about, one which isn't exactly typecast but overlaps quite a bit, and that's actors who can't shake a particular character. Say for instance someone like Rowan Atkinson, who cannot move past Mr. Bean. No matter how brilliant he was as a stand-up comedian or sketch comedy actor before it, no matter how many great roles he took after it, he will always be seen as Mr. Bean. People love him and they love when he shows up, but he shows up and people are like, oh, it's Mr. Bean. Like, that's his actual name. Mark Hamill has largely suffered the same fate despite being a brilliant Joker for decades with his voice. Tobey Maguire at first was trying to shake the Spider-Man role and it just seemed impossible. But there are cases of people being able to persevere through this, which is incredibly fun. Say for instance Daniel Radcliffe, who at one point was the most famous child on the planet. He played the iconic Harry Potter, which stuck with him for many years, but Radcliffe made it his mission to star in as many bizarre and as many fun films as he could possibly find. Leading up to the point where he's starting to not just be Harry Potter. He's been fantastic in many films since and most likely will be in many more. The same can be said for Daniel Craig, who found it difficult initially to shake the Bond name, but lately has created a new iconic role for himself with the massive aid of Rian Johnson in Benoit Blanc. An insanely likeable and fun character which he plans to do more of in the future. However, I do fear he is once again backing himself into a corner with this character and may end up not being able to shake this one either. But this all goes beyond typecasting. This is just character casting. People like Sylvester Stallone could have easily fell into this with Rocky or even Rambo, but he's managed to sustain himself in a wide variety of roles and multiple iconic ones. But in the end, typecasting can make an actor famous, but taken too far can destroy their career. It has derailed, discouraged and damaged actors, but also has defined, preserved and been used as an expressive tool for others. Some thrive within their typecast like Jack Black, Michael Cera, Seth Rogen and Zooey Deschanel. Some have escaped it and made masterpieces like Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, Leslie Nielsen and Robert Pattinson. Some struggle to escape it, and when they have had little success audience-wise or critically, like Vince Vaughn, Jennifer Aniston, Topher Grace, Kevin Hart, Dwayne Johnson and Ashton Kutcher. So in the end, typecasting isn't good or bad. It isn't really a death sentence like everybody believes it is. It just depends on how that actor utilizes it and how much that character type can adapt to different stories. Some character types are set up to fail after a while. Some character types can last a career. It won't be till the end till we find out which it is. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments and continue the discussion. What are your favourite typecast actors and least favourite? What did you think of this video and whether they're starring a typecast actor or not? As always, keep watching movies.